Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are joining us. Welcome to episode 41 of the Productive Wellbeing Show. And today I am so excited to be joined by the amazing Charlie Granger. We have a special guest because it is Mental Health Week in the UK right now. When you're watching this, if you're joining us live, then you will know this. If you're watching on the replay, then this is just for you. It's Mental Health Week in the UK right now. So I wanted to bring Charlie on because Charlie is a yoga instructor, but she is way more than this. She is also a mental health qualified coach, and she works with individuals and organizations supporting and creating wellbeing practices and programs. So I have been doing yoga with Charlie now for probably over a year. I can't even remember, but love to talk to her about the sort of the other side, the mind side as well, because obviously we are human bodies, but we're having a physical experience. Pardon me, I'm just trying to get everything up on LinkedIn. Okay, there we go. So if you are joining me on the replay or you're joining me live, let us know where you're joining from, because we would love to have this as an inclusive conversation. Now, Charlie and I are going to sort of talk about three real areas around movement and mindset, but this is, movement and mental health. This isn't like a lecture or class or anything. This is an evolutionary conversation. So please ask your questions and we will get to them. Charlie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Well, my second time, so I'm glad. And yeah, as Abigail said, if you have questions and you want to jump in, if you are watching it live, then please do. And so today, we're focusing on how movement can impact our mental health. And there's lots of different ways that it can do it. But I guess to set the scene, we're all very much aware that the brain impacts the way that we move. Our brain impacts our body. So our brain sends messages to our nervous system, and our nervous system sends messages to our brain. And that's the way that we therefore decide to walk, to move around. And ultimately, if you think about it, the pathway can happen the other way. So the way we move, which is our body, can affect our brain, which is our mind. So there's that direct link, but for some reason we can find it hard or easy, in fact, to forget that. And we can neglect that. So I'm sure most of us know the benefits of movement. We've either felt them or we've read about them. Improved sleep, mood, reduces and has been proven to reduce mental health disorders, life quality, life length, whatever that might be. But how? So the first thing I thought I'd pick is talking about a kind of expression of energy. So movement is an expression of energy. So if you think about when we feel stressed and we feel the buildup of stress, this is obviously hormonal. So there's a reaction in the brain from a hormone perspective. If we sit down for too long, or we're very static, we just don't really do anything, we're building up kind of fatigue in the muscles and in the tissues. If we are emotionally struggling, so a feeling sensation where we're dealing with grief, sadness, self-doubt, all the other stuff around mental health, which is like depression. If we go down into the disorder side, these different categories are energy, and they're suppressed energy. So essentially, we want to express energy and we want to get it out of us, whether it's seen as a negative thing, is going to have a positive impact from body to brain, so on mental health. So movement, exercise, whatever that might be, is releasing this chemical reaction. It's releasing this static, this fatigue, whatever that might be, to therefore promote more of a positive mental health.
Sorry, I'm just muting my mic because, as we have had before, there seems to be some work going on in the street.
Of course.
The corona carries on. I am just so fascinated by this because I don't know how much you guys know if you're tuning in. So there are multiple types of yoga, right? But there's sort of two main types, from a yin type and a yang type. And I didn't really know this when I first started. I just thought yoga was yoga, because let me put all my cards on the table, right? I said this to Charlie before we started. I was a cardio addict, like absolutely addicted to doing spin classes, running 26 miles a week. I used to run. And I used to think sort of yoga was for, you know, the weak. It wasn't really something that anybody really did. And until sort of I had my wake up call and then started to really analyze what was going on in my body and had a little bit more respect for my body and for my health, etc., etc. So went down this path of going to classes, and suddenly they started talking about yin classes and yang classes. And I was like, I just thought it was yoga. And then don't get me started on the Ashtanga and all the other different types. I mean, like, I'm not going to go there because you're the expert on this. Anyway, so that then when we did a class that was more yin focused or yang focused, and the teacher started to talk about how the body stores trauma, my mind was blown. I was like, what do you mean the body stores trauma? The body's just the body. How can the body store trauma? Until then, we went into a hip opening pose, which I guess you would call pigeon, which I like to call swan, because I think calling a pose pigeon isn't it's not a very pretty name. Anyway, so when we do this pigeon, swan, suddenly I felt a release of anger. And I was like, wow, they're not making this up, you know.
I know, right?
I kind of come from the cynical side of like questioning everything and what is truth. I'm open to learn. But I learn by doing. So I did this pigeon swan pose, and this wave of anger came out. And as I've gone on the journey with these modalities, have learned more. So I love that you're saying that the body holds the trauma, and that then when we do certain exercises or movements, we can release them.
Exactly. And I mean, you know, there's a whole other topic on types of emotions and where they're stored in the body. You know, there's loads of different therapies and studies on that, which is really interesting. And that, you know, you can hold a particular thing in your shoulder or your hips, and people tend to say, you know, emotion comes out of the hips and all that sort of stuff. And people go to these yin classes and everyone starts crying. But as an overall, the body does store trauma, exactly that. And you have to keep bringing it back to the higher level thing, which is if the brain decides how we move, the way we move is obviously going to affect our brain. And it's exactly the same thing in that we are storing it. We can all probably relate to when you're tired, you walk slower, you want to do less. You know, when you're anxious, you're a bit frantic and you run around. It's the same thing. But like you said around the yin and the yang, I mean, forgetting the specific types of yoga, Ashtanga, Vinyasa, that's like a minefield in itself. But if you take it from yang to yin, yang is the gross element, so the more dynamic, quite fast movement. And yin is obviously more in the subtle. So in the yoga therapy world, or just in general the therapy world, you tend to look at things on a spectrum of gross to subtle. And gross is the more obvious, easy things, or not easy things, they're just more obvious, more expressive. So faster, stronger movements where you are kind of doing a physical form of exercise, whereas going into the more subtle tends to be either having a bath or lighting a candle or taking a soft walk or doing a meditation. Those are the subtle things that can have the same impact on the brain as the gross element, which is the movement. Hence why we were focusing on movement today, because it has a quicker impact on that. So coming into the kind of brain side of it, like the neural pathways, there's a load of different stuff and loads of different things that it impacts. But one of the ones that I think is the most powerful is that movement or physical exercise has been proven in a variety of studies to increase the level of a protein in the brain called BDNF, so brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And this protein is from the neurotrophic factors. And what that means is it's a growth protein. So it acts on neuropathways in the brain that deal with emotion and cognitive functioning. And it stimulates growth and evolution of those neurons. So simplest way to think about it is we have loads of different neural pathways in our brain, that do different things. Some of them help us pick something up. others help us speak language, and others process emotion and our cognitive thoughts. And this particular protein, BDNF, impacts that. Whereas if you think about it on the flip side, studies have shown that stress, so the release of cortisol, in either very depressed or just general people experiencing stress, that depletes that protein. So therefore you can see the effect that then brings down our mental health, whereas movement has been proven to stimulate and increase that. So that's kind of why we're having this scientific impact on mental health.
Wow. I mean, guys, you can see why I love having conversations with Charlie. My mind is literally blown every time I speak to her, because you come from, but it's just movement, to know it actually can impact how you feel. And we've had conversations on the show about your diet and how that impacts how you feel. And I kind of see it like a bag of tricks, and once you become more aware of this bag of tricks and that this is yours, it's almost like on a daily basis you're picking from it which bag, which trick, which part, which thing do I want to use today. This is why we created the 8-minute challenge, and it's something that I'm going to tell you a bit more about on Thursday. But Charlie and I have recorded together 8 yoga moves in 8 minutes, and this is sort of just to get people moving in the morning who don't necessarily have time and who aren't fans of exercise, from the point of view of giving yourself 8 minutes every day is really a huge gift from a mental health point of view. And Mental Health Week this week, their theme is kindness. And one of the big things, and Charlie did an amazing meditation on Instagram this morning, give her a follow, you can find her at Deep Tide, around how it's super important to start with the kindness to yourself. And so the whole underlying theme of the 8-minute challenge and the 8-minute activities is that you start to do something for yourself, just 8 minutes a day, and it's super easy to find 8 minutes and then build it to 16 and 24 and so on. I want to just give a quick shout out to some people who are in the house with us, giving us some lovely emojis. Hi Anne, hi Andy, hi Maria, hi Lorraine, hi Jennifer. It's so awesome to have you with us. And as I said, if you've got any questions sort of coming up around this, or you've got any ahas like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that, let us know in the comments, because we love these things to be interactive. So sort of the final area we really wanted to touch on is the biggest objection I get around a lot of stuff for people is, I hate exercise. Mm-hmm. How do you sort of speak back to that?
I think one of the things that we often forget is the point that you just made about 8 minutes as well. And so I think that I often speak with a lot of people or clients that would maybe listen to something like this and go, yeah, I know I've got to do that. I'm going to do it. I'm going to make myself a plan. Other people are really down in the dumps and they know they need it. But what tends to happen is people go all the way down the other end of the spectrum and they write themselves out like, I'm going to do HIIT on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, this. I'm going to do. It's very difficult to do that. And now, especially if you're in the camp of, I hate exercise, I find it really challenging to motivate myself. You're in the normal bucket, right? Like, it is a challenge. I find it hard to, do I want to exercise in the morning and then it's out the way? No, I'm too tired. I'll do it in the afternoon. You basically just keep putting it off. And when do you do it? So I think it comes back to the fact that it doesn't have to be how we traditionally see exercise, which is a run or a HIIT class or, a really strong yoga practice where you've got no idea what they're doing. It doesn't have to be that. You're still going to experience the benefits to your mental health, like I've, discussed earlier, by taking a walk, by doing something really small. It doesn't have to be every day. I like what you said about the toolkit. I've done a talk, I think you came to, about self-care, and you want to have this, you can have it on the fridge or you can have it on your phone, and it could be having a bath. It could be doing the 8 minutes of yoga. It could be doing an 8-minute walk, whatever it might be. You've got those toolkits in there. And I guess movement is bringing you into the present moment, right? So by being in the present, you're not deviating off into this minefield of the mind, which is in the future, in the past, what can I be, blah, blah, blah. And you start spiraling into self-doubt. So movement really is just about bringing you into the present moment. So you focus on the here and now. And if you think about it, you can do that without an exercise class. You can just do a few laps around the garden, and even that, you're being present, and it's still going to have the knock-on effect in the brain. So, if you hate exercise, you don't have to fully dive straight into the deep end. You can do the 8 minutes, whatever it might be.
Amazing. I was like, you can carry on, because now we have the dustman outside. Thank God for the dustman, the refuse people, sorry. Otherwise the streets would be a mess. And yes, Chris is saying exercise can take many forms. And I think that's it. When you reprogram and when you become aware of your language and what you're saying, it's movement, and it's movement for yourself. And I have been struggling for the last few weeks to come up with a word to describe the body and looking after the body. And I've often called it the machine. And this morning it came to me in the shower, it's the skeleton. We have a skeleton with flesh on it, and the movement is looking after the skeleton, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think we sometimes forget that we see it as like we're toning, or we're like changing our physical form. So people, obviously it's nice, we want to do exercise for some people to like trim the waistline or to look musclier or to whatever that is. But I mean, we're talking about the very opposite effect of that. Like if that comes with exercise and that's your goal, that's totally great as well. But there's many great effects of movement, and that doesn't have to be on the external part. It can, like you said, if you're moving the skeleton and you start to disconnect with the outer shell and the flesh and the muscle and how you look, then you'll remind yourself, I'm just moving the skeleton, I'm just moving the body, and you start to forget about how I want it to look, and you start to think about how I want it to feel off the back.
And yeah, you've just hit the nail on the head. So I just want to say something a little bit woo-woo for those of you out there. But when you understand this and then implement it into your life, so you've got the movement, and then you've got the mindset, which is another part of sort of the 888 challenge, is understanding how you can reprogram your mind through journaling, through gratitude, through all sorts of different activities, which are all in there. Then suddenly you're not focused on I'm unhappy with my body shape, I want to change it. And the more I've gone down this path, the more I've just naturally wanted to eat things that made me feel better, naturally wanted to move in ways that my body was intuitively asking and calling for. And suddenly it drops off. Mm-hmm. I kind of call it like the magic, but got no science for it. All I can say is it worked for me, and I know it works for a lot of other people that you speak to. We are so much more powerful than we really realize.
We definitely are.
Amazing. And that's why I think mindset matters so much. Mm-hmm. So as you guys have gathered, I could speak to Charlie for like ever. And this woman is a fountain of knowledge about all sorts of things. And we are working on creating a program to sort of introduce you to all of these things around the body and holding the trauma and how to release it from the certain parts, just to like a beginner's sort of foundation explainer about everything. And we're hoping that that's going to come out sort of June, July for you. But that's just a sneak peek. Anyway, Charlie, where can they find out more about you right now?
So like you said earlier, Instagram, I do put a lot on there because it's accessible to be live, and you don't have to pay for things, so that's good. So on Instagram is deep.tide, but most of the time my work is through one-to-ones with businesses or individuals working with mental health, working with goal setting, maybe even just yoga, and that's through my website, which is deeptide.co.uk, and on there you've got all the information about the things that I offer, my schedule, and my contact details.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you guys for all your emojis. We love them. It's like our virtual high fives. Yeah. So keep them coming. And look forward to sort of following the rest of your mental health activities that you've got going on this week. Tomorrow we have got Alex, Ask Alex, who is going to be talking all about vulnerability and the power of vulnerability and mental health. And I can't wait for that. And that is at our new time of 2:30. And then I will be back again. It will just be you and me on Thursday at 11. Unless you're watching these on the replay, in which case none of that really matters. But it's nice that we can be in person. So thank you guys for all your comments. It was so lovely to be with you all today. Thank you, Charlie, so much for your time. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, stay alert, and don't forget to keep washing those hands.
Bye. Thank you.